I would like you to please welcome President Les Wong, President of San Francisco State University. Thank you so much.
Well, I feel very honored to be on stage with some very esteemed colleagues and to be in the same room with so many leaders from around the planet. It's been a very special honor. There are a few countries, and I'm going to do something a little different. You've heard a lot about academic effort, the relationship between the universities and the business world. I want to talk about the university as a place of life, where students come to improve their life. And that's going to be a little bit different message than what you've heard earlier. And the title of my topic actually will give a lot of it away. And I call it Challenges and Opportunities for Higher Education in a World Full of Conflict and Misdirection. There are few countries, states, or even cities that have avoided or not encountered student unrest. It might even be more fair to say that the unrest never went away. And it is true today that social and political conditions have given ample stimulus to a student body to step forward loudly, constructively, and all too often destructively. Such has been the case in the United States and certainly on my campus at San Francisco State University. The disturbances at Berkeley, Middlebury, the Evergreen State College, San Diego State, CSU Northridge, Fresno State, Sacramento State, University of Missouri, and a number of other campuses, public and private, have been in the news for years, particularly in the last year and a half. It is also the case that extreme political elements under the guise of free speech or the First Amendment of the US, really mean to disrupt the processes characteristic of intellectual inquiry to promote specific political agendas. And many of these groups are not affiliated with the university at all, but as a public institution, they have access to the campus as any citizen would. And so none of this is new. Incumbent governments throughout history have always prioritized the shuttering of campuses to protect their regimes. In the US, and particularly in my case in California, the roots of campus disturbance are also affected by a proto-philosophical position espoused and romanticized by the high-tech industry. Silicon Valley sits 30 miles south of me, and corporate San Francisco is 9 miles away. I have approximately 20 of the top 100 corporations in America within a bus ride of my campus. And they are infatuated with the notion of disruption. And students and scholars have taken up the notion of disruption as a badge of honor. And I think I'll name these companies, and I think you know who they are. Uber, Airbnb, Amazon, Tesla, and I'm sure many of the companies in your own countries have romantic elements of startups capturing significant angel investment dollars to upset traditional business models. In fact, there is great pride taken in the promotion and marketing strategies that emphasize disruption value. In parallel, online education, like MOOCs, also casts itself as a disruptive educational practice. But that is not the point of my talk. What I am getting at is we teach a lot of disruption and very little construction. And that is, how do we help students develop the bargaining and negotiating skills to stay within our processes to affect the maximum amount of change, not only for themselves and others. What I've listed for you is some information about San Francisco State. We have roughly 30,000 students. We're research intensive. We have we're a Master's 1 institution with 3 doctoral programs. We also have 3 campuses, the Romberg-Tiburon Center, which is devoted to Bay research in the San Francisco Bay. Our downtown campus, which serves corporate San Francisco, and the main campus on 19th Avenue. And as many of you may or may not know, San Francisco State has a very long history of student activism and a commitment to social justice. San Francisco is a sanctuary city in a sanctuary state. We are about 80% students of color. 40% of our students are Pell eligible, meaning they're a poorest part of the U.S. Demographics. 50% are the first in their family to go to school. And our faculty represent the student demographics as well. I'll share with you an interesting demographic phenomena. The San Francisco State student and faculty population today exemplifies the projected U.S. demographics of 2040. And so in many ways, we are out into a very diverse student body that reflects the United States in the future. I wanted to share with you that in the past year, activities on my campus resulted in over 2.5 million internet hits, not to mention being on newspapers from here to Jerusalem, as well as across the United States, et cetera. And I will tell you that all of us in the room ought to learn more about the speed and impact of social media. We don't know enough about that today. I've had issues about students and cultural appropriation over hairstyles. We faced the first statewide faculty strike on 23 campuses. That would have involved 30,000 faculty walking away from campus, and we had an ethnic studies dispute, a hunger strikers. Students disrupted Mayor Nir Barkat's speech, the mayor of Jerusalem. We've had hate posters on campus, anti-Semitism, Islamophobic, anti-Muslim, anti-LGBT, anti-Dreamers, and we've also had the election of Mr. Trump as the president. So as you can see, as we are a small city in an activist city, in an activist state, where students have taken up the mantra of being on the street in behalf of their education and their families and their communities. We have a number of dreamers, as we call them, students who do not have papers to be in the United States. And currently there is a campaign by this current president to remove them back to their home countries. So as an institutional response, I wanted to share with you some of the things that we've done because they might be very helpful for you. We actually started a campus awareness team, and these are 10 mid-level managers that represent every function of the university. And why mid-level? Because they probably are closer to the people serving students and yet are responsible to vice presidents in my cabinet above. If they're going to hear a rumor on campus, if there is a rumor on campus, they will be the people that hear it, and it's their job to process that. I have a cabinet of 10. I started what I call a group of 40, which are all dean level and mid-level managers, to do everything from crisis anticipation, crisis planning, to do one specific thing, and that's to ensure that the curriculum and the delivery of the curriculum is not disrupted. We have a time, place, and manner policy in the state of California, and that specifies the nature and containment of protests on campus, with the consequences that if students don't adhere to the time, place, and manner policies, that they will be subject to arrest. And then they go through a student discipline code, which might lead to their expulsion. And that's our 5-point protocol. We have instituted staff training, a coordination with city, state, and federal authorities. But we're taking this as a proactive opportunity to respond to maybe what my colleague from Canada was asking for earlier, and that was that we have to think differently about the delivery of the curriculum and think differently about our staffing. So we've added staff hires. We're going to have a faculty teach-in for 10 months, and that's where teaching will disrupt the academic day. And we're going to tackle really tough issues about race, religion, class differences, etc. I'm starting a task force with community members, and we're going to require professional development across faculty and staff. I'll close by telling you how important it is to be consistent and proactive with your messaging, to stay focused on your mission and your values, to communicate clear and consistently with employees, donors, community, and the government, and above all else, campus safety is a priority. And so I just wanted to thank you. It's a real quick glimpse of how a campus like mine have reacted to student activism and protest, and actually have not had a single hour of class disrupted, despite the list that you saw. And so it's been a very, even though it's been a very tense year where my colleagues and I get up and ask who's going to be making noise on campus today, we actually have instituted processes to contend with it. Thank you.
So we'll go back to something a little bit more conventional, probably less challenging than what President Wong has at San Francisco State. And we'll share with you some things, starting with the usual and some things that are probably not as usual in terms of the international experience. It's an institution that is currently completing 55 years, and that as an increasing number has linked the internationalization efforts to its long-range plan. Borrowing from very successful institutions such as Universidad de Monterrey, for example, we have a globally competitive aspiration as part of our long-term mission and vision, and that leads then to learning outcomes that reaffirms why and how it is that we're trying to do this. And of course, we do have the traditional mobility. We were just comparing numbers with Antonio and saying, are you still on top or are we on top? So they're at 54%, right, Antonio? 54%. Monterey Tech claims to be 55%, so we're getting closer. We're at 53% this year. So the number of graduates who has an international experience. But it's not about that I want to share with you. It's more about other things that we've been doing that actually feed into that and transform the institution into a more international university. One is that, like most institutions in developing countries, we have had to work with the faculty getting a higher qualification. So that means doctorally qualified faculty. When we started this, we were at 17%. We're now at 61%. Our goal is 70%. We'll probably achieve that next year. And the goal of 70% is for 2020. We have also worked in seeking and achieving international accreditation. WASC, for example, Western Association of Schools and Colleges, just like San Francisco State. We received initial accreditation in 2012, and I was just sharing with President Wong that just a few days ago, it was announced that we had 10-year reaccreditation, so that's great. And then another thing also is that we have increasingly linked these efforts to, as you saw in the previous session and prior to those, what the institution is also doing and linking that to international in terms of business and industry, and in terms of interdisciplinarity. So in addition to the schools and colleges, we have organized a virtual entity across the 3 campuses that we call Centers of Excellence, business, engineering, and social science, but that's not what they focus on. They focus on competitiveness and entrepreneurship, innovation and design, and human and social development. And some examples of what we've been able to do with respect to this is to tailor solutions based on what business and industry has indicated. For example, an MS in radio frequency for the electronic cluster, which involves not only CETYS and the industries, it involves UCSD in San Diego, for example. An MS in medical manufacturing technologies, which is done with St. Cloud State University, but which is addressing the medical cluster, in particular Medtronics Corporation. So what you see is more focused, more tailored solution that involves international collaboration. And here's just a sample of all the industries that we have across. But the interesting or key feature that President Christensen says is, no, don't focus on that. Tell us the newest one. And I must say that President Wong has had a lot to do with that, based on a very revealing, very eye-opening visit, I guess, for both parties, for all parties. A little over 2 years ago, President Wong was visiting CETYS, and one of the events to which we invited President Wong was at our gym. We were just unveiling the gym. And then we went to dinner, and so he said to the board, you know, I'm a commissioner at NCAA, and I don't see any reason why you should not try out for NCAA membership. NCAA is the National Collegiate Athletic Association. So as the message has been this afternoon that we should think about students and how to develop the whole individual, CETYS, since its foundation, has always tried to look at the extracurricular activities. So sports, athletics has played a very important part, at least within Mexico. So the board said, President Leon, you heard what our visiting President Wong just said, go seek NCAA membership. So I'd just like to share with you in a few minutes where we are in this endeavor. The institution has been successful in its own right, in its own setting. We've already had several teams that are national champions, basketball and track and field and other arenas. But here the challenge is, of course, to take to another level and another setting the international experience of students. And that's competing in another country and competing in what some would call, at least at the university level, the big leagues. So this last part of my presentation is what we've done. So the institution has basically sought that where it has had academic collaboration, begin to discuss with athletic departments areas in which we might have friendly games first. Second is, with the help of President Wong, approach NCAA, approach several conferences, and begin to see what it would take for a little multi-campus Mexican institution right on the border that has had a lot of international things and a lot of international activity and collaboration with the US, now take that to another arena, and that would be athletics. So we have had the conversation, we have approached, we have begun the minimum activities, which is we need to enhance what we are doing. We need to expand the portfolio of sports in which we collaborate. Just like when you're looking at mobility, you expand your portfolio of activities. We've had to look into that. Those are the mix of sports that we will probably have to field. And, and then begin to work with NCAA in this process. And what this has entailed is, on the one hand, having a conversation with a possible sponsoring conference, California Collegiate Athletic Association, making the case as to why we should join, how they can benefit, how we would benefit, and how this would not be onerous in terms of time and effort, because it will entail eventually crossing borders. Second, it has entailed also making sure that there is the appropriate lobbying effort, if you will, within NCAA, because up until now, NCAA is closed, except for one institution. It has been closed only to US institutions. I don't believe David or Alan are here, but there's only one institution, foreign institution, that is part, oh, Alan? No, not Alan Goodman, from Kwantlen Polytechnic, yeah. Oh, okay, good. So there's only one foreign institution, and that's one close by to you, Simon Fraser. So Simon Fraser University is the only foreign institution that is now part of this. So this effort, which is innovative, very challenging, cumbersome, and it might be very lengthy, maybe lengthier than accreditation. but in any case, it took us 20 years. I think it'll take less, but I'm just making my point. So it has taken, first of all, President Wong and other university professors raising the level of consciousness in a time where the U.S. in general is not that open, to international collaboration, but some headway has been made, and NCAA declared the Canadian or international experiment a success first. Second, it just passed a motion, right? Yep. Where they said, we are leaving the door open so that the respective conferences and respective divisions, 1, 2, or 3, can make a motion so that we can accept applications from foreign institutions, in particular Canada and Mexico. So we've been lining up all this process, but in the meantime already internationalizing the experience of our students, which, as I share this with you, we're in the preliminary stages, but apparently it's something different. So I don't know why, but New York Times picked up the story, and when was it, June 1st, I think? June 1st. It was a front page article, so anyway, we just wanted to share this different, innovative, I guess distinctive way of having the institution expand its international activities. So I'll stop there, and thank you.
Tim Brailsford, President of Bond University.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And for those of you who don't quite know where Australia is, it's in the Southern Hemisphere. It's on a completely different time zone, so it's very good early morning to my colleagues over there. So Australia is sometimes confused with Austria, and if you walk around town here, you'll see a number of T-shirts which have a road sign on them, no kangaroos in Austria. Well, that shot there is taken from just out the back of my campus.
Wow.
Not really. But it gives you some indication of the natural beauty of our country. We are a country which is the size of the whole of the US by geography, and we have the population of New York City living in it. So we are a very diverse country in that regard. Look, I'll just talk through very briefly a little bit of higher education in Australia. So we're a country of about 24 million people, but higher education has been one of our growth sectors, and indeed international education is the third largest export industry for our country. And so you can see there on the red, the growth of international students. We now have round about 500,000 international students studying in our country. We have about 1 million domestic students, so roughly 1 in 3 university students comes from overseas, and it's been a great success story. And if you think about how far Australia is away and the various challenges that are there, it's something that we're quite proud of. And that growth basically marries my own institution. So our institution has about 1/3 of our students come from overseas, about 1/3 come from the other Australian states, and we have about 1/3 of local students. So we're very diverse in that regard. It's a very public system in Australia. There are 43 universities. There are 3 private non-profits, of which my university is one. The government spends a lot of money on funding the system, but the government only funds the public system. So the private universities, which are very small in terms of enrolment, are at no cost to the public purse. My university is a very young university. We're 28 years old, so we don't have the benefits of a large endowment. We receive no Commonwealth, no government funding for our student places in that regard, so we're basically reliant every day on student tuition, which means that ultimately we must rely upon us meeting the demand in the student market. So that contextual setting is quite important because it means we must always innovate to survive. So I want to tell you just a story about a few things that we've been doing. So that's a picture of our campus there. So we're Australia's first private university. We're a non-profit, very much focused internationally, very much focused on professional disciplines. Our international student demographic, you can see there that we draw from most areas of the world. We're quite different from the Australian sector in that regard. The Australian sector tends to draw most of its international students from Asia, You can see there we have over 20% that come from North America, about 10% of our students come from Europe. And we're small, so we don't have scale, and we have focused very much along the student experience, and we've done very well there. We consistently ranked #1 in our country for student evaluations. The ISB, I think a number of you participated in that ISB barometer last year. I think we ranked #5 in the world for that. So most of these metrics are very much driven around student learning, student outcomes. So our challenges, pretty much like everyone in this room, if you were asked for your 3 big challenges, I think you'd probably put the same three titles up there. Global expansion and the competitive forces, certainly technological disruption and what's happening there, and increasingly student expectations, and in part, President Wong's already spoke about some of the challenges around that. Okay, so I'll just focus briefly on 3 new initiatives which we've implemented over the last couple of years. We've decided that growth for growth's sake is something that we want to avoid. Our focus is always on quality, so we run a very strong admissions process. Many of our programs are admission by both merit and also interview. So we do have character tests of students that come in. Because we're small, we do have very strong engagement across our disciplinary faculties, and so we have fought the battle with a number of our more senior faculty and opened up some of the specific degree requirements to create rooms in the degree for interdisciplinary studies. We are very focused on having a co-curricular experience so that the student experience is not just the classroom, it's not just what they're picking up online, but it's a community experience, and we expect our students to actually give back to that community. So 3 things which we've implemented. This year we've launched what we call the Transformer. So the Transformer it's not an entrepreneurship program in the traditional sense. So our colleague from Virginia State spoke about an entrepreneurship program which was sort of built around the concept of startups. We're actually very much focused on entrepreneurial ways of thinking. And what we've sort of drawn a line in the sand at is that our students are often very good at throwing us challenges, but they're not very good at articulating the root cause of the problem in the first place. And so this program is designed to have 3 stages to it. The first stage is really around having the inspiration to clearly define and articulate what the problem is. Second stage is to then look at how they can explore various potential solutions to that problem. And then the third stage is how they then transform that solution in terms of a commercial outcome. And so you might think of it as a funnel. Right? And we start off broad, we have lots of students that come into this with ideas and so on, but as we force them and create some rigor around the definition of the problem, those students now form groups because they actually see that their problems have interdisciplinary connections. And so they come in as individuals, but they start to form these nuclei around groups. And those groups then gain concentration. And then as they move through the Transformer, they recognise that the commercial reality of trying to implement some of those solutions means they must have, the concept may come from an innovation in medicine, but they need a lawyer there protecting their IP. They need someone from marketing who's actually got to go out and sell, ultimately, the device. They need someone from banking or finance that can understand the accounts. They need someone from communication or advertising that can actually put some gloss around the whole thing. So they very quickly realise that despite having a great idea, there are very serious hurdles which they must overcome to move through to commercialisation. And the goal is not to create a set of startups. The goal is to make sure that when our students enter industry, that they realise they must be pragmatic, they must be creative, and they must talk to other divisions across any organisation. Second initiative is that we have launched a big data centre. So I was very fortunate to have done a couple of terms as a Dean of Economics down at the Australian National University. In that time, I met a number of very talented economists, econometricians and statisticians. And I basically used some of my old connections to grab a few of the best people and I lured them up to my institution, and we've created an interdisciplinary centre for big data. And the concept of that centre is that we now have industry come and dump the data on us. They don't actually know what real value is in that data, but they allow us to explore that data. And we assign students, or students select into groups, and they can pick a data set to explore. And they have a year to explore, and over that journey, they produce a report, and the report essentially is answering what is the question you want to ask. So rather than having industry coming to us with, this is the question we want an answer for, often because of the size of these data sets, they don't know the richness of those data sets. And so we then have these student groups who are now finding out the questions that can be asked, and they go and make a presentation back into industry. And of course, that is extraordinarily valuable in terms of giving them a leg up in terms of a graduate career. And the final initiative, and our colleague Don Betts and I were talking about this. We have a program which is very similar to Don's stellar program called Beyond Bond. The difference here is that we've actually mandated it to all of our students. So every single undergraduate student enrolls in this program. It's not credit bearing. We don't charge any fees for it, but you cannot graduate. You cannot graduate even if you completed all of your academic requirements unless you achieve a minimum of 100 points in the Beyond Bond program. And so students get points allocated for various activities. Those activities can vary in nature, and students can actually come up with their own activities, and we have a committee where students submit their proposals and they will then be awarded various points for it. That stamp you see down the bottom has now become a bit of a catch cry across campus, and everyone wants to get that stamp of Beyond Bond approved. We've now inculcated that across all of our academic curricula, and we've created a system so that when students log on every day, they get a little barometer which gives them a needle, like a car speedometer, and it tells them how many Beyond Bond points they've accrued. And we've introduced some awards around all of that. It's been extraordinarily successful. No student has not completed that program, and the students have embraced it much more so than the faculty have embraced it, to the extent that last year we have an award each year for the student who achieves the most points. So 100 points is what we set out as the minimum. Most students generally get somewhere around about 120 or so. Last year a student got 960. And the great insight with that is that the formative assessment is that each year the students must write a self-reflective essay on what they have learned through the extracurricular program. Right? And they cannot proceed to the next stage until that has been formally assessed. And it has to be a self-reflective piece which teaches them a little bit about humility, and also makes them realise that when they walk out with an undergraduate degree, they're not walking into a CEO's job. Thank you.
We are the last session and the last one to talk. I really appreciate you are still being here. As we talk about our theme of this conference, innovation education, I'd like to share something about how my university, SIAS International University, put practice of innovation in higher education. Before I talk about that, of course, I'd like to understand a little bit bigger picture of who we are, and we are very relatively young university. As a young university, less than 19 years old, when we started to design our school, and definitely we know we don't want to design a traditional one. We know the internet and the new technology changing everything, even disrupt everything. So we want an innovation model from very beginning. Like I said, of course, we're young, so we're easier to start with what we want to do. We are first American university being approved in China, to issue dual degree, Chinese degree as well as American degree. We so far only built half our campus with our 400 acres. Of course, China is big. We grow from 200,000 students now to 28,000 students. 17 faculty, of course, we really grow. But of course, as American school, we have about 160 around American faculty constantly. We don't have agriculture. Otherwise, we have everything. We have 116 undergraduate degree, and 7 master degree, and some of course, Sino-foreign degree. So that's a little bit overall and our big picture. We are really, and we always call us as a fusion of East-West, because as innovation model, we definitely want to be more diversified. Of course, you can even look at, we have many buildings on campus, 2 sides. And this is our administration building. One side outside look like a Tiananmen, and one side look like a White House or a Capitol. People always make a mistake, say, where do we meet? My students say, oh, meet me in Tiananmen Square or White House. And they say, your students must be crazy. One is in Beijing and one is in US. What are you going to do? Because our school model is East, Midwest, and integrating knowledge and practice. It is really, we want our school model be innovative, be innovation. So that's what we do. Our school educational model, and it's actually 3 modules. As we talk about, is liberal arts education, cultural environment, and actual curriculum activities. Liberal arts education, as we talk about, many speakers talk about today, it's not new. It's it's China, of course, as China practice or follow the Soviet Union higher education model, is really very rigid. And the liberal arts is really a new introduction into China, and when we founded the SIAS International University. It's really, of course, as a good practice for innovation. Of course, we have many modules. We have many different modules for this liberal arts education. Especially, we put 1/3 for liberal arts and courses in this our module. Especially, we put a lot more art, history, critical thinking, even PE. Normally, Chinese higher education don't give enough of this kind of courses to students. So this big module take a lot more credits for our students. Definitely works well as compared to traditional Chinese higher education model. And also we put 20% of our subject courses must be taught by experts. Every school must establish an institute to invite the frontline industry and experts to come to teach, because we've been always criticized on higher education. What's wrong with higher education? Because our graduates don't know what to do when they are hired by a company. So we want to shorten last mile of the differences, and then how we can do. Then basically we require our students a pass license, and the course is being taught not by only our professor, actually by CEOs and other experts from a company. We also use, and like yesterday talk about the MOOCs and flip classes. We have many of them. Well, actually, we have at least 1/3 of our courses we pick from MOOCs and also flipped courses. So this way we used whatever the best course and then in the market. Not only our own professor. We forced our professor teach someone else's courses. Commonly recognize the best, then we have them to do. Individual study is one of our emphasis. I was watching my time. And also industrial internal practice is also a must from our students. In the last semester of 4 years, you must do like 2 or 3 months and practical training. So help you to do, really get into close to the work you have to face in the future. Students' research is also a big deal we do in the, for our school. Some of the pictures too, just basically showing how we do for this liberal arts model education, for arts, for PE, even we have many symphony group, different kinds of work. A cultural environment, basically, we try to put everything possible to stimulate innovation from students, even from architect, even of course besides our professional school, we build every dorm as a residential college, like in the US. We mix students. Normally Chinese students always stay together as a major, but we mix them up. We also do a lot of events, programs, activities in the dormitory. We also believe a traditional culture is also a stimulation, is cultivation for your innovation. We do also a lot of VIP and courses and then VIP lectures. We invite every year spend a lot of money and do VIP series. Our innovation program is a lot, of course, I don't have time to mention it. Multicultural study, and then going study abroad, intelligent campus, everything is in, you have to experience an AI or whatever, even robots, drones, everything is on campus for students to experience and how they experience the innovation. Campus architect and the garden design, everything, of course, that's part of what do we do? And of course, and as you can see, we always invite the well-known from the world to invite the speakers to come to campus. Very international campus. We have 12 European streets. We have 10 different country gardens. Very interesting, very different. This is actually, of course, every street. This is a Moscow street. We don't care what the country. We did take a different architect from different country, Spanish. And it's, of course, music fountains and everywhere, the Chinese feng shui, and of course, and it wants a lot of water. So students as well. Chinese garden, there's new libraries. New libraries, the theme of a library is innovation. It's really lots of new technology, and then you name it, you have to see it. It's really amazing. It's really very popular, and when we just opened in the news media overall China, everybody talk about it. Actual curriculum is basically, we give credits to students club. Everybody can form a club. We have about over 200 clubs now. Students management, we have students come to manage our school because actually we sit on the side to supervise them, and they manage. Every president, vice president, and me, take 6-7 students to manage everything. Leadership and a training program and a demonstration and also incubation, which is a really huge big. Whole our 12 European streets, we want students to start with flea market and then start some of commercial, then move up to internet plus and then innovation work. So we do very well. International traveling and then study, of course, we do a lot of exchange with our IAUP members. We wish to do more and then to help out. Campus life and also then a theme and activities. We every month have a big and then theme activities among the campus. Everybody participate, everybody do it, everybody design it. This is the names of our clubs, and lots of performing arts and lots of different type of program. And we know how you cultivate your ability through the programs and what we have. Stocked, new technology. Just I talk about. Anyway, and the time is still have 30 minutes, 30 seconds.
That's the last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go this way.
I think that's the last one.
Oh, that's the last one? Sorry, somebody else cut it. But anyway, I have a activity showing the results of how this innovative practice made a difference then for our results. Anyway, and then of course, and then don't have time to share all. But the best is you come to experience, to find out yourself. So you are invited to come to SIAS campus to explore. Thank you so much.
Thank you.